whatever you want. This is Tosada Fujinami, aka Tosada Senpai. I'm just getting a late start right now because I had something else that happened to me before this podcast. But I just want to go live for a little bit. I know that hopefully you don't hear my air conditioning on the background too loud. It's a little bit warmer than I thought. But actually, let me just do something else. Maybe this will help me with things. Let's try to make this a little bit cooler in here. Maybe we can turn this down a little bit. Yes. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to play around with finicking with some settings here. Okay, let's just give that a try. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get my AC all started up. But again, this is Tosada Fujinami, aka Tosada Senpai. I'm sorry that I'm starting late. I had another lesson or something that I did before I came to this podcasting. But again, I wanted to hope you all had a good Easter weekend. I don't really celebrate Easter that much, but I know some of you do. So hopefully you all enjoyed Easter weekend. Also, there's 420. I know about that day. I did not celebrate 420, but if you did, hope you're having a good Monday or after hangover weekend, whatever you want to say, or whatever, or drugged up weekend, whatever. But again, I just want to go on to talk a little bit more about Switch 2. I have my notes. I should have brought them up for a second. Again, originally I was thinking about doing some notes about the Switch 2 gaming prices and I heard some stuff about the cartridges. And also, there's another story I heard about the Amiibos. And boy, do I have a take about that one, because there's something I heard on some discourse I heard online about. Oh, the Amiibos are expensive. Now Nintendo's getting greedy. I'll tell you a different reason why Nintendo may be doing that. And again, it sucks, but I'll tell you why it sucks. But here it goes. Let's start with the Nintendo Switch game prices. Now, we all heard the Direct a few weeks ago now, and then after the Direct, they announced the prices for Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. Mario Kart World is going to be $80. It's still going to be $80. They have not decreased the price. And again, the reason why they're doing this one is not so much about tariffs. This one is the fact that now that they've seen that Sony and Microsoft raised their games to $70, Nintendo, in a way, it could be about tariffs, knowing that they're going to make a loss on their console because of tariffs from China and tariffs from the US, because they have to raise their prices of the Nintendo Switch, but not raise it too much that people won't buy it. They have to raise their games up a price. So that's why Mario Kart World is $80, Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70. Now, we haven't heard much about the Switch 2 edition version of Switch 1 games. So for instance, we have heard rumors of what Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition is going to cost. We have heard rumors about Tears of the Kingdom and Kirby and the Forgotten Land and some other games that are also being produced into Switch 2 versions. And some of them will be at $70, some of them are going to be at $80. So if you think Mario Kart World being priced at $80 was the only game at that price point, it wasn't going to be the case. The fact that once they said that Mario Kart World was being $80, my suspicion was that other games would be $80. Not really Nintendo games so much, or maybe the Switch 2 edition, but more that Sony's going to defend, like let's say Grand Theft Auto 6 being $100, or the next, or even the next Persona 6 if it ever comes out, or the Dragon Quest 12 ever comes out, next Final Fantasy, next Kingdom Hearts 4 that people are thinking about, Final Fantasy 9 Remake, Final Fantasy 7, the remake series third game. Those are RPGs. Now we talk about, let's say, the next Metal Gear Solid game, or the next Resident Evil game. All these big ones. At some point, they're going to raise Call of Duty maybe to $100. So 80 is just a starting point. It's going to be a trigger to everything else. And I agree with a lot of people saying this. The games going to $80 is a ripoff. I've seen the discourse about people looking at what Super Nintendo games were costing about 30, 40 years ago. They were also cost the same. Now again, back then $89 was much more expensive. With inflation, it's a little bit, $89 can buy you what more these days than it did those. Probably more those days. So the $89 was like an extravagance. Now it's expensive again, but again, different things, different times you can buy different things at different times. So, but for the time being, right now, I would say that I would say it's a ripoff. I agree with a lot of people that $80 for Nintendo Switch 2 games is very expensive, quite frankly, because right now we're not dealing with new technology. It's still 1080p. It's still 4K if you dock it. There's still that ray tracing, all that stuff. Nothing's at 8K yet. Switch isn't going to 8K. Nothing else. The only and plus the rumor is that even if you have the Nintendo Switch 2 version of a game, it's still graphically inferior to the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X or a PC version. So what exactly are you paying for if you're paying an $80 game? Now, there are rumors that digital prices could be cheaper. So could this be that Nintendo is raising the prices to kind of hint to people, to take the hint, saying that, hey, we'll still produce physical copies of games, but we want to go digital. So we'll price expensive so that we'll convince you to go digital. Now, in a way, that's helping out SanDisk or Lexar or these other companies that produce micro SD cards, because now I'm seeing like Lexar 1 terabyte micro SD express cards, which is another ripoff that Nintendo is doing. They cost around $200 regular price and then $175 on discount if you can find it now. But the 1 terabyte micro SD regular card, even the faster A2 or V2 version, is only $100. So they're trying to make moolah. They're trying to not only make themselves more money by doing this cost with physical cartridges being more expensive. They're also trying to convince you to go digital, which is going to help out other companies that are producing these micro SD express cards. So it could be that, you never know. But again, I think that the Switch 2 edition prices, I think those are the most egregious, because we've already seen these games released. They're only getting a graphical upgrade, so to be honest, it doesn't make any sense. For instance, Breath of the Wild, the Switch 2 edition is going to cost $70 up front. That is the Switch 2 version, of course. However, the rumors and the discourse is that it will not include any DLC, which means that everything that you want that's outside of the original game for Breath of the Wild is going to cost, what I've seen, $20, making the entire package cost $90. So that's where now you have a $90 game that has everything. Now, if you want cheaper, you can just buy the original Switch 1 version. Let's say it costs $60, not on sale. It could be cheaper for on sale. And then the upgrade pack is $10 for Switch 2. Then it's $70. So you can either buy the Switch 1 version of the game with the upgrade pack, that's $70, and it's backward compatible, so you can put the Switch 1 cartridge inside the Switch 2, and then you just pay it'd be $70, pay the $10, it'd be $70 for the Switch 1 plus the upgrade, as opposed to just the Switch 2, and now you have to pay for the DLC. Now the Breath of the Wild version 1, now this is why, like, it's a ripoff, because if you just pay $70, you're getting the same thing as opposed to $90, because the Breath of the Wild Switch 2 version will have no DLC, while Breath of the Wild Switch 1 version, there are kind of packages out there that include the DLC. So take it for what it is, $70 versus $90. I agree with the ripoff being there. Now there's also, what about Tears of the Kingdom? I'm hearing rumors that it's going to start off at $80 a Switch 2 edition without DLC. So who knows what that's going to cost. If there's DLC with Tears of the Kingdom or any other types of upgrades, that's going to be paying more. And now this doesn't include other games now, because there are other games, like I said, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I believe Donkey Kong. No, Donkey Kong. There's another game. There's a couple other games that are also. Let me think. Was it what you call? What was the game? Was it Splatoon or something like that? Was also getting a Switch 2 edition. I forgot which one. There was another game that was getting a Switch 2 edition that I forgot off the top of my head. But all these games will be priced so freaking expensive on the start, and they're re-releases. So it's like, yeah, it's so what a ripoff that you can just pay for the cheaper Switch 1 version game, buy the Switch 2 upgrade pack, and then you have the whole thing. Now, what am I gonna do? I may just buy the Switch 2 version. Here's the reason why. Because the upgrade pack, you still have to download it. It's not on the physical cartridge. So you still have to have memory, physical memory on your Switch 2, whether it's on the system or in the micro SD express card, to get down the upgrade pack. Now, the upgrade could be a lot because graphically everything could be it could be hard. Now, that is assuming that what the discourse I heard about game cartridge itself isn't confusing, because that's also the confusing part. Now we have the Switch 2 game prices. There's two price points: $70, $80. $70 for non-premium, $80 for premium. Premium could be a brand new game like Mario Kart World, or it could be a Switch 2 edition. It's just a remastered game with Switch 2 upgrade for Switch 2, just bumped to $80, like Tears of the Kingdom will probably be, or some other game. So, or Elden Ring, for instance. Elden Ring. I forgot Elden Ring. Yes, that's also getting a Switch 2 version, or it's getting Switch 2. But again, that's gonna be probably $80 up front. But whatever, who knows? But again, that's, you don't know it's gonna be $80 or $70. What's a premium game? What's a non-premium game? It's gonna get confusing to figure out the pricing, because you have two price points, $70 and $80, and then you have like for instance, Breath of the Wild, 70 base for Switch 2 edition and 20 for a DLC, because you don't have that yet. So now, it's just a mess. This is a complete mess with the games itself. And like I said, that's only on the pricing. What about the freaking cartridge itself? Now, we know from before the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible with Switch 1. So you can put Switch 1 games into Switch 2. You just need to you just have to buy the upgrade pack and get it down onto your console so that it plays with the Switch 1 game. Now again, you could do that, that's fine. That'd be great. Let's say if, for instance, let's say Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, because if they have the base game there but not the DLC, you have to download stuff anyway. So in that case, Breath of the Wild makes sense. Why don't we just take the Switch 1 version with the DLC, then just upgrade down the upgrade pack, because you're going to have to download stuff anyway. So you're not going to get the whole game on the cartridge anyway. Now we know Cyberpunk 2077 will be all on a cartridge. The rumor is that there's going to be no download at all for it. Maybe there'll be patches, but you won't need to download anything to play the game. Meaning that if I give someone else the cartridge, they can play the game and not have to download something onto their system to waste space, because who knows, maybe they have other games and they don't want to waste space on Cyberpunk 2077. But that's using a 64-bit cartridge. Now, some games are going to use a 64-bit cartridge, which is very expensive, I guess, for some reason. I don't know why, because we have a 512 gigabyte micro SD cards that cost freaking $60? Or no, about $100. Let's say 256 gigabytes is $60 on micro SD cards. $60 around, let's say $50. If for some reason 64 gigabyte cartridge is going to cost $80 to manufacture, of course it's just the game, the software made. That's why it's a premium, because of the software. That could be it. That's the reason why. But still, it shouldn't cost. Memory is supposed to be cheap. It shouldn't cost that expensive to make a 64 gigabyte cartridge that, again, micro SD is about like this small. Switch cartridge is a little bigger. So why in the world is a 256 gigabyte micro SD card much more cheaper than the big 64 gigabyte cartridge, which is less memory by a factor of 4, around 4, around 4, costs more. That's why it's a ripoff. So yeah. So we have the cartridge, and not only that, but the cartridge size is, and then for some other games, they're using like a 16 or 8 gigabyte cartridge. What? Memory's cheap, people. Use the more expensive cartridge. It's not expensive. Plus, they make them in bulk. It's not that expensive. This is why I agree with customers. Games should not be that expensive, because we are not talking about a Super Nintendo big-ass cartridge that's so big that it's expensive. Now we're dealing with parts that are so batch manufactured, it's so cheap now that it shouldn't cost $80 to purchase that game. It really shouldn't. But that's a whole different story. It should really just be the cost. It's like a commodity now, the memory at this point. It should be. So that's why it should just be like the premium is on the property of the game, which if you put digital is $60, you can just make the game 65 physical, or 70 at most. Just $5 or $10 premium. Not $20 or $30 premium. That's stupid. So yeah, I agree with people. Game prices are stupid now. Nintendo has opened up a Pandora's box of game prices, but also the game cartridge, they're saying that Switch 2 is backwards compatible with Switch 1. So you can play Switch 1 games in Switch 2. You can play Switch 2 games meant for Switch 2 in Switch 2. You can play Switch 2 edition games of Switch 1 games in Switch 2. But supposedly you can't play Switch 2 games, either edition or original, in Switch 1. Here's the thing. Some people look at the groove of the card and how there's like different grooves to prevent from Switch 1 from going to Switch 2. There are some rumors now that maybe you could play Switch 2 games in Switch 1. Ah, lovely, isn't that? But again, we don't know yet, but you never know, because right now it could be that let's say we could put those games in there. But that's not even the biggest problem with the Switch 2 games. The other problem is that now we may be paying $80 for a cartridge that has a download key. That really sucks. That sucks because if I want to, let's say I switch consoles for a game, because let's say the next Switch 3, or whatever you want to call it, Switch 360, as what Microsoft did, let's say the next Nintendo console is backwards compatible Switch 2, let's say. But to do that, if you have a cartridge that's just a download key, you have to put it onto the next game. Now, I can't play the game off the bat. I have to wait for the download to load and all that crap. Let's say the game is about 50 gigabytes, because it could be 50 gigabytes. Let's say Elden Ring or Street Fighter 6 or whatever. That's not Cyberpunk 2077. And then all of a sudden, I'm waiting hours for a game to go on, and now who knows? Maybe something goes wrong, and you don't have a good internet connection. Now you're just wasting time. And now you're wasting time. Now the cartridge is pretty much useless. It's just a paperweight at that point. So that's why I think like this whole thing with the game stuff is a mess right now. The consoles are, like I said, I defended Nintendo, and I think Nintendo, not defending, but really understood them, because it's made with so many parts in the console at the form factor, going against competition, and with the doofus's tariffs. So that's why at $450, it's a steal. Nintendo knows it's a steal. That's why they raised the prices of the accessories. That's why now they're raising the prices of the games, because they realize they're making a loss on the console, so they're trying to make it up through the accessories and the games. Now the accessories, they have to raise it because if you people are complaining why Nintendo is raising the price of the accessories, it's because of the tariffs. Because those accessories are mostly made in China. And what's the tariff rate on China right now? 145. Is Nintendo going to raise each accessory by 145%? No! They only raise by $5 to $10 depending on the accessory, which means they are taking a loss from the items being tariffed getting shipped out. So, as much as I hate the prices going up, you realize they're taking a loss because they're paying the tariffs. That's going into their profit margin. I told you before, these are corporations. These are not mom and pop stores. These are not your friendly neighborhood salesmen who will give you a discount and take a loss and say like, hey, I'll coup it. These are corporations that have shareholders who, if they see their numbers go down, they will sell their stock. The company will get impacted negatively. Will they go bankrupt? Most likely not. But will it impact the games you see coming out? Yes. Will it impact the deadlines you see coming out of the next generation consoles? Yes. That's what's going to impact. So people, it's a delicate balance of what they're trying to do. So they didn't raise the console, they raised the accessories, they raised the price of games, mostly because of tariffs. Don't delude yourself. This is all about the tariffs. The games, unfortunately, is not so bad because they also felt pressure from Sony and Microsoft. Because when I looked this up, most of the game cartridges are made in Japan or Mexico or even in the US. So they've outsourced the game product manufacturing from China. So a lot of this is, again, half competition, half greed. So that's what I don't like about this. Now, I want to talk about one more thing because I started out late, but there's one more topic I want to mention because I saw about this. And I want to emphasize the importance of why you need to ask who, what, where, when, why, and how things. Nintendo, there was an article about Nintendo Amiibos. Now, we have Street Fighter 6 coming out. Those are coming out with some Amiibos. We have some other new Zelda Amiibos. We have some other, not Zelda, but some other Amiibos Nintendo-based. So they're all Nintendo. Nintendo's manufacturing the Amiibos. Now, the Amiibos originally cost, like, let's say $20, $25. Like, I mean, 15, 20, no, 15 to $20, maybe $20, $25, right? So what one website is showing is that the Amiibos, some Amiibos are going to be $30. The Street Fighter 6 Amiibos are going to cost $40. Isn't that great? So Amiibos that originally people thought were going to cost $20 are going anywhere from $30 to $40. So basically 50 to 100% more. So basically almost double what the original price should be. So if some Amiibos are 20, let's say, now they're 40. Now, I did some research on this. And to be honest, I hate to break it to you all, people, especially you guys don't like to hear this. It's because of the tariffs. And do you want to know why I say this? It's because I saw online, or I looked this up, and I looked at my Amiibos and everything. Where are the Amiibos mostly made from? I'll give you one guess. Oh, China. What's the tariff rate on China? 145%. Who instituted the tariff originally? And because they are China retaliated, they basically tit for tat because they weren't going to get bullied. Who made the rate that high? Oh, the doofus. Now the question is, why they make it that high? Because he was trying to make money. And because he's making money, you don't think the companies want to preserve their money? Here's the thing. The Amiibo's $20, right? You get shipped into US. 145% tariff on that. What do you think that will cost? If you want to get anywhere with that, make any money off it, you have to charge that $20 Amiibo to $50. Now, what did Nintendo price that? $30 to $40. So, I hate to break it to people, Nintendo is taking a loss on that too. They're taking a loss on the console. They're going to take a loss on the Amiibos. And who knows how much more of a loss on Amiibos. Now you're thinking they have so much money. Again, they're taking... If I set the tariffs at $145 and they're only charging $30 for a $20 Amiibo, they are taking $20 loss. So basically, that they basically have to charge $30. Again, the 145 tariff, right? That's about 25. They're charging 30. 25's tariff. That means they're only getting $5 back now of profit. Let's say originally they were getting 20, let's say, because of no tariffs. Do you know why? That's why they should be charging 50 just to get that $25 profit back? Just to get some profit, that $20 profit back, at least. Why should we be charging 50 instead of 30? So they're taking a loss for you people. And you guys don't realize it. They are taking a loss for you people. That's why I keep saying, don't just hear the what. Nintendo's charging $30 for a $20 Amiibo. They're now raising some $20 to $40. That's because it's because of the doofus' tariffs against China. Because the Amiibos are made in China. Now, next questioner asks, why can't they move the Amiibo manufacturing to a different country? Can I ask you something? If you're working on a project, or at work, or working on a task, how good can you multitask? How good can you take 5, 6 different priorities? It's hard, isn't it? Nintendo has to figure out what to do with their consoles, what to do about their games, what to do about their accessories, what to do about Amiibos, what to do about some of the other stuff now, to work around the tariffs. They have to figure out, like, the pre-order. They have to figure out the pre-order. They have to figure out the pricing now. If you had that much to think about in your daily job, and you had to do it all at once, not kind of compartmentalize and take things one at a time, don't you think you would get stressed out? Don't you think you would kind of like ask people, give us time to think about this because it's so egregious, as one word where it was I found in one of my emails saying like the tariffs are egregious. So again, I understand people saying that the prices are ridiculous. I agree, the pricing's ridiculous, but it's not not everything's black and white. Not everything's good or bad. Not everything's yes or no. There are some things that make sense. The Switch 2 console, some things don't make sense. Like for instance, like I said, the games themselves, the pricings, the cartridges, whatever. That's a whole bunch of bullshit because it's just software, their property. They're just doing this because they want to make a profit, make a bigger profit, and they want to outshine Sony and Microsoft, saying we have the most expensive game now, because you don't think they had Tears of the Kingdom at $70 and they're like, oh, this feels great, it's at $70. The next big game, we're gonna go to 80 because no other game company is doing this. We're going to do it. So that's why they did that. So the game prices and this whole mess of using micro SD express card. Yes, I agree. Nintendo, you suck. It sucks that we have to use micro SD Express, because just tell us to use micro SD XP or some other shit, more advanced regular card, not the Express stuff, which is now, oh, whatever. And then the game cartridge, the console, the games themselves, the pricing and everything, that's a mess around. The different versions, that's a total mess. I definitely agree with the discourse out there. But again, people still need to look, and again, if you look around, it makes sense about the games and about the games and the other thing I was mentioning too. I forgot what I was mentioning and why it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, whatever. I forgot something else. The game prices don't make sense. The freaking, and there was all other thing about that don't make sense. But the console price, we all should be lucky it's $450 and not $550 at least, or $600, because that technology is expensive. And if that was Asus or was it Asus or MSI or Lenovo, they would charge more. Steam is charging cheaper, but again, their console is very thick. If you ever held a Steam Deck or Steam Deck OLED, that's so much heavier than Nintendo Switch, and they're charging it cheaper than a Steam Deck. The Switch 2, a Steam Deck OLED, the Switch 2. So people, $450 is not that bad. It's actually a steal. And also now with the Amiibos, as much as I don't collect Amiibos anymore and I don't care about them, I still have to say Nintendo is taking a loss on the Amiibos, and that's also a big part of a lot of their getting some money too, because there are plenty of people, maybe not in the US, because in the US it's starting to kind of waffle a bit. Other countries do make use of Amiibos a lot because they are adorable, they are cute, they are Nintendo stuff, they are for kids, so there are plenty of people that buy them still, and Nintendo's taking a loss on that because a lot of that's coming from China. So again, it depends on where it's all coming from. Like I said, I definitely don't like Nintendo with their pricing of games and all that. It sucks. But I understand the accessory stuff, some of the pricing of the accessories, whatever. Well, it makes sense though. That makes sense. There was something else I mentioned about Nintendo pricing, and also something else I didn't like about that. But yeah. But again, it just what's it called? The hardware. Let's just people just think about this. The hardware is more expensive than you think. Memory is cheap. Hardware is more expensive. And we're getting Nintendo Switch 2 at $450. Amiibos are sure $40 sucks. I'm not gonna pay for Amiibo for $40 unless it's like another Final Fantasy Amiibo. I'll collect that because I love Final Fantasy, so I'll collect an Amiibo like that. But $40 for Amiibo, I agree, it's way too effing expensive. But yet I understand where Nintendo's coming from. They are getting charged a 145% tariff on that coming to the US. A $20 Amiibo, even for them to break even, needs to be charged $50 so that they don't lose their profit. But again, I'm not sure how people in the community discourse can think about this from the business side of things. Again, I'm a customer, so I definitely agree that it's too expensive. But you have to also ask who, what, where, when, why, and how this is happening. And then you understand, like, hey, you can make smart decisions now. Now, for instance, what should you do about this? The easiest thing is not to complain about the price. Don't go to Nintendo complaining about the price, because if you listen to people like me and they'll tell you the same thing, the tariffs is adding a surcharge of 145%. by charging $40, we're still losing money on the original $20 Amiibo. So we're comping the loss. You're paying $40, but we're still making a loss, so we have to raise it by that price, but we're still making a loss. So be grateful it's $40, not $50. And unfortunately, you'll have to take it because if you know how economics works, this is what they do. If let's say you're working in like a making t-shirts. If you were charged 140% of your t-shirt is now a tariff, so let's say your $20 t-shirt, are you still going to just charge $20? Because that 145 is basically $25. So now not only now you don't make any money off the t-shirt, now you have to go back in your own pocket and pay $5 extra to the government as a tariff. So aren't you going to charge your t-shirt at least $50 to at least make the original $20 profit and make extra just for a rainy day? So what do you do to combat the cost then? You can't complain. What you do is just don't buy the Amiibo. Just like I'll do. I won't buy the Amiibo. I'll tell Nintendo that they manufacture too much, so they'll scale back. Maybe it's a good thing because maybe Amiibo's not that popular, and Nintendo will get the message in their head that the Amiibos are not very popular anymore. But if you keep complaining and you just buy anyway, Nintendo's gonna say like, "Hey, you're complaining, you're still buying. Nothing's wrong then. Just don't buy it. If you complain and still do something, it won't matter. If you complain and don't do it, sure, it's double the feature, but they're still gonna ignore you. Easiest thing, ignore it, don't buy. They say that hate sometimes can be worse than indifference can be worse than hate, because indifference means you don't care. Hate means you still care, which means you may still buy it anyway because you see it, so you're like, damn, I hate the price of it, but I still love this Amiibo. So the easiest way is to like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I won't buy it. And when they see this, when Nintendo sees the sales of the Amiibo go down, then they'll think maybe it's because we charge too much, and maybe we don't need to produce that much, so they don't produce that much. But again, like I said, it's all economics, people. It's all just thinking, using your brains with these things. That's why I call the doofus a doofus, because he has no idea about tariffs at all. He doesn't know the damage that tariffs will do to the rest of the economy. All he wants is that money. Because what's a tariff? It's basically a tax. He's not gonna. So here's the difference between a sales tax and a tariff. The sales tax has to be charged to the store. The retailers charge the sales tax to customers. The retailers collect the sales tax, then they give the money to the government afterwards. And plus with the manufacturing of all the products that come in, that money has to go into the retailer. It has to be sold first, then the government gets money off that product that gets there. Here's the difference with the tariff. It gets collected when the item gets shipped into the country. So that money gets collected by a tariff collection. See, that is the government, by the way. It's not like a retailer that's a private corporation or a private company or a private store. It's the freaking government. So immediately, the doofus gets the money. Why do you think he went to government, people? It's so simple now. If you think about it, that's why these tariffs are so messed up. That's why you people didn't think the tariffs were going to affect the video game industry. Oh, yes, it does. Because how much of video games is actually manufactured in the US? Maybe digital, yes. But physical, even limited run games is not very. You've seen the price of limited run games, right? They are way too expensive. That's because manufacturing in the U.S. is expensive, even more expensive, more expensive than adding the tariffs to a foreign country. Why do you think, even with tariffs, it's still too hard to manufacture in the U.S.? This is the reason why every time you hear something that the doofus says, stop thinking in a vacuum. Stop taking his words at face value and think of the entire context. Think of the who, what, where, when, why, and how of things. And think now, this has influenced Nintendo to adjust the pricing of everything. That's the problem here. We would have gotten a pre-order date of April 9th. We wouldn't have to wait until this Thursday. Sure, Nintendo is saying they're going to be guaranteed, but I can already imagine the scalping prices. I can already imagine Nintendo trying to figure out, can they still do everything in Vietnam? Because if you don't understand, it's not just shipping from China all the product to the US. It's the manufacturing. It's not just the cost of the finished product. It's the parts. It's the labor. It's everything has to be done. The money, all the flow of money, the flow of transaction through the systems. Again, your mom and pop store may have one computer on a server, one server. These corporations work on in the cloud, maybe server farms, everything. It's much more complicated than you think. I work in corporations. I know how they work. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just telling you the unfortunate reality of the situation. So again, people, understand the easiest way if you don't like what's going on. Two things. One, be indifferent about it. Two, don't buy it. That's the easiest way you go about it. That's if again, I know there's a problem with people. They have FOMO. They have fear of missing out. I'm gonna buy it because I want it for my side ventures, for my business. That's why I'm gonna buy the Switch 2 and everything, because I want it for that reason. But if you don't like what's going on, if you don't understand what's going on, if you just think Nintendo's a greedy corporation, while understanding that the tariffs has screwed everyone over. By the way, by September, Apple's going to run into the same problem. Google's going to run into another problem again. Microsoft, when they want to come out with a handheld consoles, going to come into the same exact problem. Nintendo's just the first because they didn't release their console, Switch 2, before the start of the new year, before the start of the doofus's reign. So again, this is why you people need to understand not to take things at face value and think of everything, the context, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of things, and make smarter decisions, because electing this doofus got us into this problem. You think Nintendo wanted this? They were hoping that this didn't happen so that the US launch went smoothly, prices would not have to be hiked. But what do you expect them to do? They're a corporation. If you're willing to defend Apple or Google or Microsoft or any of these American companies, Nintendo's just the same thing. They're doing the same exact thing as all these other companies that you invest your life with by buying their products. The only difference is Nintendo's just solely into gaming, mostly entertainment. Apple does more. Google does more. Microsoft does more. But again, they're all corporations. I hope you understand this, people. It's just a fact of life. Again, I hate this prices too. I don't like it. I don't want to pay this. I really don't. I hate it. It sucks. But I understand where they're coming from, because the doofus has ruined everything. And by the way, did you guys see your 401ks recently? Did you see your investments as of today? Point made. My point made. Well, again, thank you for listening from me. I'm going to have another topic on Friday about video games and all that. And again, don't know if it's crazy about Nintendo still, but again, I do want people to understand, to start thinking of things. Again, I definitely feel like right now, for me, I kind of want to put more of a spin of putting other economic, or not even economic, but just other societal factors into what you see in video games. It's not just you're a gamer. I'm a gamer. I play games. I love it. Everything's interconnected. Everything in this world's interconnected, including what's going on with the Switch 2 launch and how messed up it is. But again, thank you for listening. This has been Tosawa Fujinami, aka Tosawa Senpai, and I'll see you all on Friday, hopefully a little bit earlier, and then we can get on with our merry way. And again, this is Tosawa Fujinami, and I again just remember the other side of things.